Hey, how are you, sir?
I am excellent, man. I woke up again this morning, so I really cannot complain too much.
Well, perfect timing.
Let me do one thing really quick. Sorry. I want
Yeah,
to make
yeah,
sure that this thing is optimal for the interview here.
sure. I have like some guys. I talked to this cat yesterday, and he had like his, and my cousin does this too. He leaves his laptop on his lap while he's talking, so the screen's like shaking the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. We don't want that.
No, that's good.
How about that?
That's beautiful.
So before we get started, I just want to make sure the band name is pronounced Coldwards, like tour words,
Okay.
cold words. Um,
Yeah.
it gets confused sometimes because we when we initially started the band, we announced it as Cold Wards. So that's kind of on us. But then shortly after that, which has been what, a year and a half, we switched it to Cold Words. So and it's easy to get confused, and it even looks like Cold Wards when you look at it. But
Yeah. Well, I think it was on your website. I saw a thing that said pronounced like cold words.
okay, cool. I just wanted to verify. That's all.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. So talk about the name a little bit. Like, where does that come from? What inspired you to use that name?
The name. Um, we actually I was, it's very hard to come up with a band name these days because all the names are taken, especially the cool ones.
Yeah.
Um, so I was actually, while we were still trying to decide what to name the band, I was actually coming up with artwork concepts of for the album, and one of the things I had initially that we ended up not using was a dingy, cold, like hospital or insane asylum ward with a gurney and like some blood and stuff. So I was like, what about cold wards? And that's kind of where the cold wards thing came into play. And then we kind of liked it, and I looked it up and nobody had it. And then it kind of morphed into what if we did cold words, like a direction towards the cold? So it's kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because it's almost like a word that like a one of those combined words. Like it's like you're going towards cold. But then what you just said about wards, I never even thought of like cold wards, like cold mental wards.
Yeah. And also I liked it because of the wordplay on cold words, like, our lyrics, cold words. Those are some cold words.
Yeah, yeah, that's very cool. I love those kind of play on words things. There's this group called Anticon that I always thought was really cool. It's like Anticon, but then they have like an ant icon for
Oh,
their
nice.
logo.
Yeah, see, I'm
Just
into that.
yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. I like that. Um, so you guys are based out of Houston, right?
Correct.
Do you guys play locally, or I guess what I like to do is have you kind of like tell the band origin story. Like how did the band come about? Basically, how did you guys get to where you are? And I was just showing a couple little clips of your newest video um for the song Bad News.
Um, locally, we've done one show actually here in Houston, and it was opening for some friends of ours, Kingdom Collapse, and then the next day we did, or 2 days later, we did Rockin' the Sound Fest. There's a radio station in Mississippi called The Sound 228. We did their festival with like Non-Point, September Morning. I
Okay.
think Blacktop Mojo was on it. Those are the only two shows we have done so far. We're working on some sporadic shows for this fall, and then also hitting up all of the festivals and stuff for early 2024. I've actually been in some conversations with some other agents for bands and some potential national tours and stuff. So we're working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
That's awesome. I was curious about the music scene in Houston just because I one of my favorite like non metal bands is from Houston. They're called Khruangbin. Have you ever heard them?
I have not. It's odd that I haven't heard of them.
They're so good. It's hard to explain, but it's like a blend of like country and hip hop and like blues and R&B, and it's just like, and it has like some kind of like 60s kitsch type stuff. Like it's just so good. So I
I'll
was just
definitely
curious.
check that out.
Yeah, they're such a great band. It's like really chill music though. You know, it's not like rock, it's not heavy. It's very like laid back, kind of mellow type stuff, but it's so good. So I was just curious like what the scene is like in Houston, because if it's producing a band like that, you know.
We have some very, very, we have a handful of really good bands here for sure, of several different genres. We have some really good hip hop artists here,
Yeah, a
also.
lot of rap.
Yeah, yeah, Paul Walsh from here.
Yep.
The Swisher House Gang was all, from here. We've got some
Is it
pretty
Ghetto
good.
is Ghetto Boys from Houston too?
I don't believe so, but I could be lying. I'm
Okay.
not really that into it. But we definitely have some very good local talent here, for sure, and a nice supportive local scene.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious as to, I read a little bit about you guys, and I read that like are your sons in the band?
Yeah, it's my son Sean and my other son Zach. Zach is the one of the main. There's two. They both sing. Zach does more of the lead vocal stuff, and he does all of the programming. And we have lots of loops and samples and stuff in our music. And Zach does all of that. And Sean plays guitar. He's one of the guitar players, and he's also the co-vocalist.
Okay.
He does a lot of the more metal-y stuff, like screaming and stuff like that.
I thought that was cool because I have a son who is a teenager who plays in a metal band too. So I always thought, I used to play in bands. So I just thought, I was like, oh, that's very cool that you're doing it. It's like kind of a family affair. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, the boys have been into music since they were little. And I always knew that they would end up being in bands, but I never, thought they would be in a band with their dad, because like most kids don't really want to do stuff with their parents. They think it's not really
Totally.
cool. But I'm fortunate, and they want to do this, and it's a pretty good project, man. I love it. I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah, the music sounds great. Do you guys have like a full LP coming out?
Well, our debut record, which is called Bloodwork, that came out last year. It's got
Last
10
year.
songs. Yep.
Okay.
We just obviously released the new single Bad News, and that is the first of a 5-song EP that we're gonna release singles, and then after the 4th single, the next release will be the full 5-song EP. It's kind of the new way, of doing things. And it gives each song its due justice. Whenever you drop a full record, like a lot of the songs it's not like back in the day where you bought a record and you put it in and you hit play and you let it go front to back, and that was probably the only thing you listened to for weeks at least when a new record came out. But those days are sadly gone. So the music listening audience is very ADD these days. So you got to just keep pumping out with content, which also helps with all the algorithms and all that. You kind of got to play the new game.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
I love
the
that.
EP will also be called Bad News as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I listened to some of the record and I was like, well, they just put an album out in 2022, so they have a single, but I wasn't sure if you guys were, gearing up for it. It's funny though that you say that, because I just talked to another band the other day, same thing. They dropped a single and then did a small tour around the single. And I mean, that's the world we live in now. It's kind of like, why spend the time putting together a 10-song album when people are only really going to hear probably 2 songs off of it?
Yeah. Whereas if you release, singles, every song's at least going to get a fair shake.
Yeah, it seems like that's the smart way to do it. Just like build a record with singles.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way to do it these days.
I don't know how much you want to go into it, but I'd be curious to have you or hear you talk a little bit about your career before this too. Like, how'd you get into music? What inspired you? Because you're obviously a veteran. You've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, well over 20 years as far as getting paid to do it kind of thing. Obviously I was a musician since I was a little boy, a little kid, I guess. Um, but initially, getting into actual what made me even want nobody in my family is has a musical background. Like it wasn't like I had an uncle that was in a band or whatnot. There was no one. So and my parents adopted one of my brothers when I was 11ish or something like that, and he played drums. And although he didn't have a drum set when he lived with us, he was always air drumming. And like, I really looked up to him for some reason. And it was just cool. I just thought it was cool. Um, and that's kind of what spurred me into like wanting to actually play drums. Um, and then, I started skateboarding around the same time, and I wasn't really into metal or, hard rock at all before that. But then we were skateboarding, and some folks I was skateboarding with had the big jam box in the 80s, and they popped in the fresh release of Metallica, Master for Puppets.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I was instantly hooked, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So adding that, and then I was just nothing but a straight metalhead at that point. And then adding that with already kind of looking up to my brother air drumming, and I was kind of like, yeah, I want to get into music. I want to play drums. And then I kind of teetered around. It took me a minute to convince my parents to buy me a drum set, because
Mm-hmm.
they kept buying me like instruments that you could turn down, you could control the volume on. So like an electric guitar, a keyboard, which actually I'm fortunate because of that I'm able to play guitar and piano a little bit and stuff like that. But so for the first year or so when I had my drums, I kind of just poked around on them. I didn't take it too serious. I was more serious about skateboarding. Then after a while, I injured my knee skateboarding. At that point, I was like, I'm going to be a professional skateboarder.
Mm-hmm.
I injured my knee and had to have surgery. So I was kind of like, well, I kind of want to do this drum thing, but I'm not sure if I want to do skateboarding or drums. But if I keep skateboarding, I'm going to probably injure myself and not be able to do either one. So it's kind of like at that point that I decided to stop pursuing skateboarding and start paying more attention to drums. And then I met a friend who actually was a pretty decent drummer, and I went over to his place, and he had this massive 80s style, drum kit, and he actually showed me how to properly like play some beats. By the way, my adopted brother at the time, throughout this period of time, he had moved away because he was a little older than me. So I didn't really, he wasn't really there to kind of guide me on drums. But when I met this friend and he sat down and he kind of jammed for me and showed me how to properly play a first beat. Once I figured out that first drum beat, I was like, oh, I'm hooked. I mean, I was like a crackhead on drums,
Mm-hmm.
So then I would just put on headphones and try to play like Metallica, Slayer, Iron Maiden, Motley Crue, all of the bands of the time, the quote unquote metal bands of the time, and from there it just morphed, man. And I was just like, this is what I want to do. And nothing else was near as important to me from that point on. I just focused on drums and stuck with it, and it worked out,
So how'd you get to the point where you got paid, where you're like, oh, now I'm like an actual touring musician? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I meant just persistence, and I'm sure every young musician probably thinks this way, and I could be wrong, but I just always knew from the time I made the commitment to this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I just knew that it was going to happen. Like I wasn't going to give up. I knew it was going to happen. But again, persistence. I would always try to get in whatever the biggest local band was at the time. And a lot of times those bands already had drummers. So I had to kind of like ride it out till something happened. And then, hey, we need a drummer. And then if I didn't know those people, I would find people who did and be like, you got to get me an audition. And I just kept one upping and one upping. And I was living in Memphis at the time, and I was in the number two biggest local band of the time. The band was called Mother Crush. And again, how I got in that band was their drummer quit. They needed a drummer. I kind of used my connections and got an audition. I got into that band. But so the original singer of Saliva, Josie Scott, was in a band before Saliva called Blackbone. Him and the original Saliva guitar player, one of them, Chris DeBaldo. Okay. That band was the number one local band. Like, they were bigger than anybody, and they packed out anywhere they played. They disbanded. They started Saliva. I was in Mother Crush, and I was like, man, that's the gig I want. You know what I meant? But again, they had a drummer, and they were a local band. So some time went on. Something happened with their drummer, and I knew Josie by my band playing shows with them, but I didn't know him personally like that. We weren't hanging out, and it was the days really before like internet, and you couldn't just look someone up, And I had actually, my son Zach, his mother was pregnant with him at the time, and I was, I believe, 26. And when that happened, she was like, "All right, look, it's time for you to accept the fact that you've spent all this time. It's time for you to like get a job and a real job and focus on this. You ain't made it by 26. It's over." You know what I meant? So I kind of made a commitment to her. I was like, okay, you're right. I quit the other band, committed to that, and about 6 months or so, I want to say, went by, and trust me, inside I was dying. I wanted to play. My phone rang, and I answered it, and it was, "Hey, this is Josie Scott. Our drummer quit." First of all, I didn't even know how he got my phone number, but he said, "Our drummer quit. I've seen you play. I think you're the best drummer in town, and I would love for you to play drums for Saliva. You don't have to audition or anything. If you want the gig, it's yours." And I was like, "Is this really happening?" So I explained to him my situation with my wife at the time, and I was like, "Man, I already committed to, like, I'm done. But if you'll let me have a couple of days to figure out how I'm gonna like try to convince her of this. I want the gig. Let me." He's like, "Sure, take a couple of days." So took a couple of days to get up even the nerve to bring this up, because I thought for sure she was going to be like, no go. So I kind of gave her the whole story, and she said, if you would have said anyone else, I would have told you hell no. But I know Josie Scott is gonna make it, and you would be dumb not to take this gig. So I was like, the stars aligned. And then obviously I got in the band. We grinded it out for a couple of years, and then started getting big label offers. And I guess part of it's luck. I don't know, but I guess, when I finally gave up is when it happened. It's really, really odd.
That's crazy. That's a good story. It's cool that your wife at the time kind of like turned like that too, because that's not where I thought the story was going. I thought you were going to have to say like, "Oh no," so I had to tell her to fuck off.
No. I probably would have, though.
Yeah.
But everybody in Memphis at the time, everybody knew Josie was going to be a star. He was already a rock star locally, and he just has that, whatever it is, he has it, So everybody knew he was going to be successful, and she did as well. So it was kind of like, all right, you'd be dumb not to do this, because you're probably going to actually make it if you do this. So
she was smart enough to know. It's funny that you say that, though, because I don't think it's all luck. I saw we talked about a clip with Corey Taylor from Slipknot a couple days ago, where he was telling the story about how he was in Stone Sour playing around Des Moines, and he saw Slipknot, and the way he told the story is like, "I was sitting in the crowd and I saw them and I went, I'm going to be the singer for this band." So.
I kind of did that with Saliva in my head. I'm going to be the drummer for this band. I kind of did that as well. And even when they were the band before that Josie and Chris were in, called Blackbone, I was kind of like thinking that then. And then that band broke up, and I was like, well, I'll never be the drummer of that band. And then they started Saliva, and I was like, all right, here's the new opportunity.
Yeah. So you knew all along. You had it wired in your head.
Oh, I had a
Manifested it.
plan. Yeah, I had a plan. Yeah.
That's fucking cool. It's funny too. You were talking about skateboarding because do you know who Evil Knievel? You have to know who Evil Knievel is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we did a thing on Evil Knievel too, and I had no idea because when I was a kid, I thought he was the coolest thing around, and like he totally made skateboarding and motocross and all that stuff like a viable thing for kids to like aspire to.
I remember back in the day, I had one of those little Evil Knievel motorcycle deals that you crank up, and it takes off. Yeah.
They show that in the movie.
Yeah, it was so awesome. I definitely had that. I wish I would have saved a lot of those toys I had when I was little because they're probably worth some good money now.
So it's crazy. And I watched the reason I was talking about it is I watched this documentary that Johnny Knoxville did about Evil Knievel. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes.
It's really good, but they talk about the toy in the movie and they pulled it off the market because when he got in trouble, when he beat up the exec with a bat, he beat up some Hollywood exec with a bat because he didn't like the book he wrote about him.
Probably wasn't a smart business move, but hey, it's Evil Knievel, man. It adds more to the legend,
Totally. What's crazy about the movie too is the guy he beat up is in the movie. And he's like actually kind of like complimentary of him in a lot of ways. I was like, that guy is a freaking saint. Like,
yeah, well, it made the guy famous, man, because he's the guy that Evil Knievel beat up with a bat.
Right? Totally. I'm sure he got out good too. He like wrote another book after that or something. But
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. It's so. I guess another thing I like to touch on with people is your influences. You talked a little bit about kind of what got you into metal. Are there any specific drummers that you love, or is there even any music like at the moment that you're listening to that you're really into you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, as far as inspirational drummers from when I was little, like I said, Lars Ulrich, Tommy Lee, Dave Lombardo, Nico McBrain, but later on, Mike Portnoy, formerly of Dream Theater, is one of my all-time favorite drummers. John Bonham, Neil Peart, all that good stuff. But as far as bands, I have such a wide musical palette. I tell people that if you could see my playlist, it's everything from Garth Brooks to Cannibal Corpse, and everything in between. I mean, From Ashes to New is one of my favorite bands right now. 3 Days Grace, not necessarily metal bands. 3 Days Grace is one of my favorite bands, but Falling in Reverse is crushing it right now. I love everything they do. I know Ronnie Radke gets a bad rap, but whatever. I don't care about his personal life. Musically, I think they're really, really crushing it.
Their stuff is good.
Their stuff is really good. For me, there's no genre either. If I hear a song and it moves me and it connects with me, I love it and I jam it.
Any guilty pleasures? Like stuff that you're like, oh, people.
Well, I listen to a lot of country, believe it or not. When I'm in my truck, just running errands, I usually have a country station on. That's not very metal, I know, but I just like music, man.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of metal in country.
And I've actually been getting turned on to a lot of new death metal bands because my 17-year-old daughter is totally into death metal. I couldn't really tell you names of a lot of them right now, but she's all about searching out and finding new unknown death metal bands and blaring it at 200 decibels, in the bedroom. So
that's
some
beautiful.
of it's really, really good stuff, man.
We just covered this bit with Kirk Hammett the other day, and they were talking about to go back to Master of Puppets. It was so interesting because he's like, when we released Master of Puppets, there was nothing like it out there. There's nothing like that, and he's like, and now I'll get 14-year-old girls coming up to me at shows that I'm talking to, and they're like listening to the most like insane, brutal deathcore stuff, like. And he's like, that's how much the consciousness has changed, or how much people's tastes have evolved since that era, you know. And because she's like, when we released Master of Puppets, there were no women at our shows, you know.
No.
The audience was like all sweaty dudes.
None of that happened until the Black Album. See,
Yep.
First of all, Master of Puppets literally changed my entire perspective on life. You know what I'm saying? When I first heard that, I was consumed. I probably bought that cassette 30 times because I'd play it. So that's all I listened to skateboarding. It stretched the tape out so much. But so when I was in like junior high and high school, those Metallica fans were a lot different than today's Metallica fans.
Yeah.
We would go to school wearing our Metallica shirts, and all of the cool kids would be like, Metallica, ew, blah, blah, blah. Then the Black Album came out, and then those kids were wearing the Metallica shirts. So,
yep. I made this, I said almost the identical thing, because when I was a kid, same thing. I had like Metallica and Pantera shirts, and all the like preppy kids listen to like U2 and stuff like that. And I love U2 now, but back then it was like we were the outcasts. And then now you go to a Metallica show and those people are there with their families, you know?
Absolutely. And the thing is little did they know we were actually the cool kids. They were the outcasts.
Totally.
Didn't look that way. Yeah. I was definitely part of the black metal band shirt at school crowd. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah. Me too. It's funny too, is my cousin, he's a couple years older than me, and he was like into Metallica before they were like, before And Justice for All too and all that stuff. And like once they started getting popular, he's like, oh, they're not cool anymore, you know. But his whole thing is like, I used to get beat up for wearing a Metallica patch and shit, like, and then all of a sudden the people that were beating me up were like Metallica fans.
That's absolutely. They took over the world for sure, man. And look, no matter what era of Metallica there is, you can always just pop in your Master of Puppets album. You know what I'm saying? I really just think that's probably their pinnacle. You know what I mean? I love all of their stuff, most of their stuff. But Master of Puppets, man, it's hard to beat that. Even still to this day, it's hard to beat it.
Their trajectory is so cool too, because like the people that they are now, they're like, you can tell they're just like, they're such genuinely good dudes. And it's really cool to see them like out with Pantera and like, you know, on social media, like James and Phil, like with their arm around each other, and, you know, Lars and Rex chilling.
Man, you know, I've got some cool Dimebag and Vinny stories too, man. Those two were probably, man, the two of the best dudes I've ever had the pleasure of meeting, you know.
Well, let's hear those for sure.
Well, obviously Dimebag, we did a lot of shows with Damage Plan. Never with Pantera. I never actually got to see Pantera. Just the opportunity just didn't ever happen. Mm-hmm. So Dimebag, obviously, if you were hanging out with him after backstage or anything, you drank or you wore it, kind of thing. So we were doing a festival show. We were actually on tour with them, doing festivals and radio shows when that unfortunate event happened with Dimebag. Yeah. I remember getting off stage and my drum tech saying there was a shooting at the Damage Plan show. We just played with them the night before.
Oh my God.
We were supposed to play with them the next morning at a little early morning radio thing in Chicago. So this was like a one-off night that we weren't kind of on the same bill with them. And I remember my drum tech saying there was a shooting at the show. And then later on figuring out what really happened. That was a pretty horrible night. But on a positive note, we were playing in Lubbock, Texas. I think the place was called the Cattle Arena. It was about a 6,000 seat amphitheater. This was the first time the first time I ever actually met Diamond Vinny was after that show. So we were really pumped to be able to playing with them. And we were on stage. We're playing Click Click Boom, and I'm jamming, and all of a sudden we get to the chorus, and I hear more drums playing than I was playing, and I look over, and Vinny was on my drum riser. He jumped up there and he grabbed some sticks out of my stick bag, and he was jamming along on like the floor tom and the cymbals and stuff while we were playing it. I mean, I almost had to stop playing. It was such an epic moment. And then, we got done. We got to meet him, obviously got hammered with him. And he was like, man, I love that song. We play that song in our club all the time. Just most epic. Got some pictures with me and Vinny. I actually have one blown up here on my wall behind my studio electric kit here. And then from that point on, we were just best buds. Every time we would play in Vegas, Vinny would come out, we'd hang out. Two of the most down to earth, coolest dudes ever. And on top of that, two of the best, drummers and guitar players that's ever walked the earth, in my opinion. So
Absolutely. I had no idea. We just covered a thing the other day about Dave Mustaine asked Daryl to join Megadeth in
wow.
the like Rust in Peace era. And the story was Dave was like, yeah, I just hired Nick Menza. And so Daryl was like, oh, I'll come play with you, Dave, but I need to bring my brother. And he's like, Dave Mustaine's like, what is this, Rain Man or something? And he's like, later on, I realized what was going on. And it's a good thing that it didn't happen because we wouldn't have had, all those albums, those Pantera records. But
they were definitely a package deal, man. You weren't where one was, the other was. So
yeah, I feel like I said this too. I felt like Vinny basically eventually just died of heartbreak. When he finally passed, it was just like, I can't even imagine the pain that he had to live with every day after that. Like he saw his brother murdered in front of his face,
He was never the same after that. I can tell you that. There was always a piece of him missing after that, for sure.
Man. Well, do you have any more upbeat stories about Daryl like dumping liquor down your throat or anything like that?
Not any that I can remember,
Well, that's good then.
That's the problem, yeah.
Not anyone to tell on a live broadcast.
I did see him several times. People would walk up backstage where everybody's drinking, and he would hand them like a black tooth or something, and they'd be like, no, and he'd be like, drink it or wear it, and then they would wear it. If they said no again, it was you're wearing it. So
we just did a thing we were talking about because it was his birthday the other day, and so they gave out shots at the concert. And there's all these people in the comments like, they gave Zach a shot. Is he drinking again? It's like, no, they brought out like a tray. It was Rita and Phil and the guy from Lamb of God with no shots. But I mean, that's the other thing we were talking about is Dimebag has to be, he would be so stoked to have Zach Wilde sitting in his spot,
Yeah. I mean, they were best buds, I mean, if anybody, that's the only person I think on the planet that could pull that off. And that would do, if you've got to have a Pantera tribute, which I'm glad they're out there doing that. It's got to be Zach, it's the only proper way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought Charlie was not the pick I would have expected, but it makes sense too. Cause I know that they, Dime played on a couple of Anthrax records, played leads on them. So I'm sure that they were real close. And I saw Anthrax and Pantera together, on a tour. And
Charlie and Vinny were good buds too. So Charlie's an excellent drummer. I remember, man, I've been watching Anthrax. I've been back in the day, all those bands that were influences that I forgot to mention. Anthrax was also one of them. So
yeah, they're kind of under the radar, man.
I've seen him recently with Black Label Society and Exodus here in Houston. A few months back. Loud, great, but loud.
I thought it was cool that Joey got back in the band because I never expected that. And his voice still sounds great too. Yeah,
crushing it. They killed it when I seen him here a few months back. It was amazing.
I think I appreciate that vocal style more now because when I was a kid, I wasn't a Maiden fan until maybe 10, 15 years ago. And when around the time Brave New World came out, but now that I appreciate that operatic vocal style a little more, now that I love Maiden, so I can see how it works with Anthrax.
Absolutely. I don't know if that style would go over today if a new band came out like that, but it definitely fit. And in that era, you could say what you want about that style, but it's not easy to do, man. You got to be, good at what you do.
Well, in a band like Anthrax too, they kind of bridge the divide a little bit because they have that heavier sound, but he's able to do that power metal kind of voice and make it sound good they don't have to do the growly voice, And
they don't sound like anybody else. They're completely their own thing. So
yeah,
man.
I was going to ask you, I see that I have that exact interface that you have next to you, the Alesis Q49.
The MIDI controller.
Yeah. Do you produce all you guys stuff? Do you do a lot of the production work or?
So, um, my son Zach lives in Memphis, and my son Sean lives in Wisconsin, about 45 minutes to an hour from Milwaukee.
Mhm.
Um, and then me and the bass player Richie and the other guitar player Michael all live here in Houston. So when we record, when we're ready to record, we record our parts here at my home studio. Zach does all his own stuff, and Sean does all his own stuff. And then we do all of our own editing, put it together, and then we send it out to a mixer that we use named Jonathan Dolis. He's
Okay.
got a studio called Concrete Studios. It's in Nashville. So we do all of our own tracking and editing and everything, and then we send it to him to mix.
That's really cool. Is that something you raised your kids to teach them, like like how to produce their own music or record or any of that stuff?
Absolutely. Both of them. When they were both little, I was already, I use Studio One now, but I used Pro Tools forever and ever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I had either one of them, they were always really curious about music. So anytime I had any one of them, I would like, if I was like making demos and stuff, I would have them like kind of, all right, hit Control Plus, or, here's the record buttons, the space bar. So they kind of started off like that. And then, I made sure when they were ready to start doing stuff, they always had their own computers with Pro Tools and stuff. So they've both been recording for since they were really little. And then of course they just honed in their skills and got really good at it.
Yeah, the more you do those kind of things, it's interesting to me because I'm trying to do the same thing with my son. Like he plays guitar and he has a pretty heavy band. And so I bought him a laptop a few years ago, and I've just been kind of like pushing him down that road. And he actually just bought Logic with his own money. So like bought a copy of Logic. So I'm like, yeah, keep going down that road, buddy.
Now my kids teach me stuff. I might have hey, I'm trying to record this this idea. I'm having this issue, and they'll tell me how to fix it. So
Yeah,
it's come full circle.
it's great. It's funny too. I've had the same experience. Like when my son started learning guitar, I would there would be riffs and I'd be like, no, it goes like this. And then he like, no, you're missing these notes. And I'd be like, holy shit. I'd be like, I've been playing this song for like 20 years. Like I've been playing it wrong.
Well, you've been playing it wrong, Dad.
Yeah, totally. And he's not, uppity about it, but it took me a minute to like be humble enough to go, yeah, dude, like he's better than you already. Like,
what's weird too about that is, back in my day, it took, like teenagers and stuff, it took you to like close to your 20s to really get good at stuff. Now, like 6, 7-year-old kids are just shredding stuff up. It's like, man, but I think it's because they have access to the internet and more, exposure to things. Like you can go on YouTube and learn how to play something off of there and stuff. And we didn't have that. We had to like figure it out,
Yeah. To his credit, my son will admit that too. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, you didn't have YouTube. I can go watch like the finger position and like slow the video down. And
yeah, I call that YouTube University. YouTube.
Yeah. I jokingly told my kids, I was like, man, if I had Google when I was your age, I'd be a millionaire by now.
Oh man. I can go back.
No, that's very cool though. Just the whole, I really, that's inspiring that you have that kind of relationship with your sons and that you guys are doing this. The music's great too.
Appreciate that, man. That's the bonus of the whole thing. It's any dad can be in a band with his sons, but to have it actually be good quality music and being well received is just, you can't ask for any more than that.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things that like I wouldn't have known that had I not just like done some reading about you guys. I think the average person, unless you guys go out, like, it doesn't seem like you're out there like talking about it, like putting it on the forefront, so to speak.
Yeah,
so it's like one of those things. I think you're playing it right too. It's kind of like you guys are just putting the music out, and it's like if people dig a little, it's not like you're hiding it, but you're not like making it part of your
yeah. Thing. We want people to judge us off of the music, and then it's really cool if people discover the band, they like it, and they go, "Oh, this is a father and sons." That's even cooler. We don't want anything to deflect from the music. We want the music to do the talking.
Yeah, that's great, man. Well, is there any chance that you guys will be out this way in the near future, on the West Coast?
We're planning on, we're hoping for world domination, man. So I guess nothing is out of the question. It definitely would be, if that happens, it would definitely be 2024.
Yeah.
But we're working our hardest to try to get this thing to a big level and tour the whole world if we can. So there's a very good chance we'll be out there.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and it's funny too. I've said this to a couple different people, but the more we do these. So when we started doing this, we've been doing interviews with bands and stuff for a couple of years, and I just started doing this live stream thing, and I think it's so much better because it's more of like a conversation, like a two-way conversation than an interview. And from my experience, I've like really got into a couple bands that I might not have really dug that much into had we not done these broadcasts. So I think that, it's just getting out there and talking, and I even said this about Metallica. I think part of the reason they're so huge is just getting out there and playing and talking to people. Even, the music aside, like building those relationships is part of the process,
Yeah, and these are all my favorite types of interviews to do as well, other than the just straightforward asking you the same 10 questions. And this way it gives you more of a chance to get in depth and change your answers up a little bit as well. You know what I'm saying? Depending on the situation. So these are definitely more of the pleasant interviews I like, where we're just chatting,
Yeah, and what's interesting to me too is the last couple of shows like this we've done. It's we have it set up as a podcast and everything, but we kind of like, so Sunday we did this show with this band, and it was, we did the normal conversation. Then we kind of got into politics a little bit, not anything too crazy, but it was funny because like that one got a ton of views, and then the people in the comments were like, this thing like got really interesting during the tail end when we started talking about politics stuff, So I think and then yesterday, talking to this guy, Mark Zavon from this band Kill Devil Hill, he had a song about the pharmaceutical industry. So we kind of got into a little bit of like some third rail stuff, and I think, and I think that people, as some bands are, very buttoned up and they don't want to go, you don't want to alienate anyone. I get that. But also I think people are kind of craving that too. They want to hear, a conversation about things that are happening and stuff like that. So I think that helps too, like just having a little more open-ended conversation and makes it more interesting.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
But this guy yesterday, we were talking about, they had a song about the pharmaceutical industry, and we weren't like saying, anything third rail, but just talking about how people aren't skeptical anymore. It's like my point was that, the pharmaceutical industry does a lot of great stuff, but I think also people's doctors are they just blindly trust their doctor rather than doing a little bit of investigating or just kind of taking blind advice. So anyway,
100%, doctors, I can't say all doctors, but a lot of them, they get kickbacks.
Yep. That's exactly what we're talking about.
For example, therapists, and I've watched this with numerous friends and even one of my daughters. You call them, you make an appointment, within 5 minutes they're trying to write you a script of all kinds of stuff. They hadn't even talked to you long enough to know here's what we're going to do. It's because they're getting kickbacks.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a good therapist, you should be good at talking things out with them. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, and what's funny to me too is I had a doctor who, my background's in the marketing industry, and so these people don't think about like the power that these companies have through advertising, because when I worked in advertising, we'd get I was in sales, so we get an annual pie chart that's like, here's where all the money is in advertising that you guys need to go after. And 75% of that's like health industry stuff, pharma and health. And it's like when you have that kind of a budget and you have a huge effect on a company that exists on advertising revenue, like a news organization does. So
absolutely. Yep. That's another beast too in mainstream media. Talk about controlling man. You know, when I was a kid, um, you watch the news and they just said the news, man, like it or not. You know what I meant? It was just, here's what's up. You can
Yeah.
either like it or not like it. Now it's, you got to watch this station for this if you're on this side and that side. It's like, man,
Yeah.
where's your,
Everything's tribalized.
you're not a respectable journalist if you're not just saying the news and letting the audience decipher what they like and what they don't like. You know, you're
Completely.
actually, in my opinion, doing a disservice. You know, just say what's up, tell the truth, and then let people make up their own mind.
One of my favorite quotes is news is something someone doesn't want printed, everything else is advertising.
That's pretty accurate, man.
Yeah.
Pretty accurate.
And I had this surreal moment the other day. Well, the other thing that upsets me, I think, I was reading Blabbermouth this morning, and everything's been so tribalized that it's like this one artist was talking about how she's not going to have Trump people. She doesn't want Trump people at the show, or no, those people are terrible. And it's almost like it pissed me off because you used to be the person who said you were above that. Like, you're not going to judge people based on these, generalizations. And, I have friends who voted for Trump who are Black and Asian and Hispanic. And I'm like, are they racists? Like, you can't just call everyone who's a Trump supporter a racist. I mean, you're doing the same thing that the people that you claim to hate do.
You can't say all Democrats are, want to, you know what I mean? And the sad thing is a lot of people that have that mentality are being fed that again by mainstream media.
By media.
They're telling you what to think.
Yep.
You're not on your own. You know what I'm saying? I remember, every time there's an election year, it's if you vote for so-and-so, unfriend me and blah, blah, blah. Like, are you 12? You're not, you know what I'm saying? Like, vote for whoever you want. I have friends that are Republicans, Democrats, independents, and we're all just friends, man. You know what I'm saying? The key to it is when we get together, we don't usually sit around and talk about politics because we know we don't agree on certain things.
Yeah.
But we still love each other, man. People are people. Why would you want everyone to think just like you? How insane is that?
Exactly.
Why would you just want one train of thought? What kind of world would that be?
Well, and when you break all that tribalism down to the reality is it's like the South Park episode where they're trying to vote for a giant douche or a turd sandwich. Yeah. It's like those are your choices. And Bill Hicks, actually, one of my favorite comedians who's from Houston, has a bit about politicians. He's like, I like the puppet on the left. He's like, oh, I like the puppet on the right. He's like, hey, there's one guy holding up both puppets.
Yeah, it's the same guy. Yeah.
It's the same guy. Yeah. So that's the other thing that's frustrating about it is it's like these people are so in this tribal mindset. They don't even see that, like, I mean, your guy is just as bad as the other guy that you think is like a threat to America or whatever. And once we actually talk to each other, that's the thing I realized in the last bullshit political cycle is once I started sitting down and talking to the people that are supposed to be fascists or a threat to my freedom or whatever, I'm like, no, these people actually have kind of the exact same wants and needs as I do. We're just, being pitted against each other by the media.
Yeah. And the funny thing, too, is a lot of these, especially younger people who are throwing around those words, they're Nazis, they're fascists. You could say, give me the definition of a fascist, and they would be completely at a loss.
They don't even know.
They don't. They're repeating, spewing and repeating what they're seeing on TV or what someone else tells them. What's mind-blowing is, going back to the internet thing, is we have the world of information right here at our fingertips. You can simply do your own research and find out if what you're hearing is true or not. I don't know about you, but I don't take anybody's word for anything. I do my own research and then make an educated decision based off of what I see the facts are. You know what I mean?
That's how you do it.
If somebody said, don't like that guy because he's a whatever, I may take a note of that, but then I'm going to figure out if he actually is that or not. 9 times out of 10, he's not.
Completely. And you realize, I'm not trying to make this analogy, but there's certain people in the media today who are called like fascists or Nazis. And then you look back into history at what they did to people like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, or these guys who were obviously not Nazis, but they defamed them in all kinds of other ways. In the press, they went after Martin Luther King for tax fraud and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. There's some crazy stuff that happened in the history of this country, and a lot of it is boils down to politics.
Yeah. Well, what's scary too now is I remember like there's these people that are like, oh, punch a Nazi or like they like it's scary to the point where like I'm like, who's deciding whether or not this guy's a Nazi? You know what I mean? It's like who's making that judgment call because the definition has gotten really vague.
Yeah, there's a lot of the younger generation again. There's a lots of new made up words that
Yeah.
don't even make sense of what they're what they're throwing stuff on. It's like, dude, that doesn't even make that word doesn't even mean that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
they'll argue you into the ground that it does.
Language has been twisted. I told my son, I'm so proud of him because he said this stuck out to him. But I told when he was a kid, I can't remember what happened. Someone told him something on Xbox or, one of his friends in the gamer world said something. I was like, listen, son, don't believe anything you see on the internet. Nothing. Always verify it. Like, and he's like, that stuck with me.
And only half of what you see.
Yeah.
That was my old saying. Yeah. Always do your own research. I don't care what the topic is. Always do your own research. 9 times out of 10, if somebody's telling you not to like something, it's because they've had an issue with that person.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to get you to hate with them, but really it's not credible at all.
Or that person's saying something that exposes, some kind of interest or group or something. So I come from marketing. So whenever I hear anything, I'm like, okay, what are these fuckers trying to sell me? Like they're trying their viewpoint or their, whatever.
Yep. It's subliminal. They've been planting little seeds in you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the beautiful thing, like with COVID, it was scary too, because we couldn't talk to each other really. And then it's like you can through like social media or whatever, but the key to all of this stuff is just communication and like being able to talk to each other. And as soon as you do what this artist I was talking about does and says like, oh, well, these people are just a non-starter for me. I'm not even going to talk to them if they have a red hat on. It's like, what are you doing? Like
that anybody that generalizes somebody on no matter what side of the fence you're on, I'm instantly not going to want to associate with you because you have no you're not intelligent enough for me. You know what I mean? If you're just going to make a generalization off of like that, you're not somebody that I want in my life anyway. You know what I'm saying? I'll hear anybody out on everything, but yeah, you can't do that. Don't be friends with anybody who wears a red shirt. Like what is that? You know what I mean?
It's so stupid. And I like the mentality. My mentality is I want to bring people together. I hate, and I'm sure you're probably the same way as a musician or an artist or something like that. It's like, why we're all the same. Like we want to bring people together, not divide them. But let's focus on what we have in common, not what our differences are.
Absolutely. And that's another thing about the metal and rock community too. That's kind of the general vibe, together and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
That's the beautiful thing about music, right? It brings people together.
Yeah. If you go to a concert and it's packed, you don't see people sitting around talking about who they vote for and what their views are. They're there just for the music, together in one room,
But I feel like even if they are, at least talking to people face to face about that kind of thing, where you can hear each other's tone and you have to look each other in the eye, it's much more sane, I guess. Like it's
being able to pick someone's brain, like, okay, here's what your views are. I'm curious of why, why are your views that way? Maybe you'll learn something, you know what I mean? Maybe you'll have a change of heart on it too.
More, hopefully, and I'm somewhat optimistic. I feel like the younger generation, as much crap as they get, I know that my son and my kids are much smarter and they're very broad-minded and they're very accepting and they're much more open to listening to people and, not being as judgmental and so
I judge every single person I come in contact with as an individual. You know what I mean? That's all there is to it. There's no race, there's no sexual preference. I judge you as a person and your, what your integrity is and who you are as a person. Everything else doesn't matter.
It's funny that like we'll wind down here, but that reminds me of something I saw Ice Cube say on Tucker Carlson. and Ice Cube got a ton of shit for just talking to Tucker Carlson because like he's a white supremacist now, I guess. Ice Cube.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, but he said almost like exactly that. He's like, listen, there are black people I don't like. There are white people I love. He's like, I judge everyone as an individual.
Yeah, that's the only way to be, man. You know what I'm saying? That's it. The only way to be.
Well, that's a good note to wrap things up on. Paul, is there anything else you want to shout out? Like, you guys got any shows coming up in the near future that you want to promote?
Nothing on the books as of yet, but I would like to invite everyone who watches this to go to our YouTube channel and check out all of our videos. I think we have 6 on there now. Check out our new single and subscribe to our YouTube channel. One of the hardest, all of the streaming platforms and stuff, they pay the artists like a fraction of a peanut. So, but one of the platforms that actually does pay well if you have enough subscribers is YouTube. So not just my band, but any band you support, don't just go to their YouTube channel and watch videos. Actually hit subscribe. That helps them out greatly monetarily. And also go check out my band on all the social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. And if you like us, follow us, share it with your friends. That's about all I got, man.
Man, really appreciate you taking the time today, and definitely come back through too, man. Always an open door. Come talk. Like when you guys do have a big tour to promote, or you got another single coming out, come by and talk to us, man.
You got it, man. I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Enjoyed the conversation too.
Yeah, likewise.
Take care of yourself, man.
All right, brother.
Coldwards, check them out. Subscribe to their YouTube.